Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be creating a website using an API from Pexels. Okay, so as you can see we have a library of images. We can generate more images. We can even download some images if you want to. We can click this download link, okay, and then it leads us to a link where we can download this image, and then we can just save as to download this image. Okay, so when I'm in the website, I can click this view more button here. We can view more images will generate, and then I can search for, let's say, football or something like that, anything that I want to search, and then the API will fetch the data that has to do with football, and then now we're returning the data that has to do with football. So the API returns only I think about 10 or 15 items per page. I think it's 10 items per page. You can set it to return as much data as you want, but for this video I just put 10. Okay, so when I click load more, we can load more images that has to do with football. We can keep viewing more. You can keep making requests to the API. I think for this API, the free version, you're only limited to 2000 requests per hour, but I think you can have a version which you have to pay, and then you can get as many requests as you want. But anyway, I was just making this for demonstration purposes. You can totally use a different API. Mostly the things that we are going to learn in this video is going to be applied in anything, really, any API that you use. So this project is also responsive as well. So when I view this on mobile, so see how responsive it is on mobile. You can view it on anything, really, on any screen. And then if I go to the responsive tab, I can start to increase the width, and then as you can see, the images really adapt to whatever width you're using. Okay, so as you can see, depending on the size of the screen, the images adapt really well. Okay, even the text is adapting. Okay, so yeah, let's get into the video. And also don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share the video. If you have any suggestion, you can comment, and then I'll make a video about it. Okay, let's create a new HTML file. It's going to be index.html, and then let's get a new folder. It's going to be folder styles, and then in the styles I'm going to create a new file. Style is going to be style.css. We're going to use Sass for styling. It's much quicker to do than normal CSS. And then I'm going to generate HTML markup. Okay, I'm going to name this photo booth. Okay, so now in here I'm going to create a header dot okay, so in the header we're going to have a form. Okay, so the form is going to be form dot search form. Okay, so I'll remove the action. Okay, in the form we're going to have a div. It's called input control, and then in here we're going to have an input dot search input. Okay, so for the search input we're going to have a placeholder as well. So for the placeholder I'm just going to put some text. Okay, you can put whatever text that you want, and then below that we're going to have a button dot btn dot btn submit. Okay, that's the name of the button. Okay, so inside the button we're going to have an image. It's going to be an icon for searching. So it's going to be search.svg. Okay, so below the search I'm going to have another item. This one is going to be an h2. It's going to be logo, h2.logo. and then A, and this one is going to lead us to index.html. Okay, so photo booth, like so. Okay, so now before we do anything, let's go ahead and start doing this the styles. Okay, so I'm going to do basic page resetting. I'm going to set margin to 0 and margin 0, padding 0, and then box sizing to border box, and then list style to none. Okay, and then I'm going to create to generate the Sass, the CSS file from the Sass. So I'm going to create watch Sass here. Just press this button here, watch Sass, and then it will generate a style.css. Okay, so to be able to use Sass, you can use an extension. Just search for Sass in here. You see the extension Sass. Just install that extension. Okay, so now let's link our style sheet to the index.html, and then below the title I want to say link, and then styles, and then style.css. Okay, hopefully we should be able to see an input. Whoops, we need to open this with Love Server. Okay, there it is. We have an input. Okay, now let's start doing the styling. Let's start with the header. So for the header, we're going to give it a height of 20 VH, and then dark background color, height 20 VH, and then background color is going to be hash 2535, and then 4C. Okay, and then we're going to give it a width of 100%, display, flex, align items to center, and then justify content to center, and then flex direction. I'm going to put that to column, and then margin bottom 4M. Okay, so in the header we're going to target the logo. So logo, which is our H2, the font size is going to be 3 rem, and then we're going to give it a padding bottom for this one. So padding bottom is going to be something like 1 rem. Okay, after that we're going to target the anchor tag, which is inside the logo. Okay, so we're going to give a color of white. Okay, and then font family, we're going to look for a font. So let's search for Google Fonts. In here we're going to look for Lobster. Okay, so we want something like okay, I'll take this first one. Select this style, copy Lobster, and then you go to the index below the link, paste it down here, copy the font family, go to the styles, and then you paste it here, Lobster. And then we're also going to do another font family. So this one is to search for another font family. This one is going to be, I think, Montserrat. I forgot the spelling. Oh, there it is. Okay, we'll just grab this one and this one. Okay, copy the whole thing, and then I'll remove these two links here. Okay, and then I'll just paste the new links down. Okay, so and then I'm also going to copy the font family, the Montserrat, and then I'll go to the styles, and then I'll paste here. Okay, alright, so now we should have a nice font for the booth. Okay, text decoration by default, let's do to none. Okay, so the underline will go away. Alright, so now let's focus on the input. Okay, so we finished the header. Actually, we could use a bit of letter spacing here. We're going to do letter spacing 2 pixels, and then after that let's start styling the search form. Dot search form. So this one we're just going to give a width, I think 35% we'll do for now. Okay, and then we'll come back later to change the width if we need to do that. So dot input control, that's where our button and our input is. So the input control, we're going to give it a width of 100%. Okay, width of 100%, and then margin 0 auto to center things 0, and auto position of relative. Okay, and then text align to center for now, and then we're going to target the input, which is inside the input control. Input. So for the input, we're going to have a width of 75%, and then padding 0.4 rem top and bottom, and then left and right is going to be 1 rem. After the padding, we're going to do border. We don't want a border, so it's going to be none, and then an outline to none, and a border radius. Border radius 25 pixels will do. Okay, and then transition, we're going to do everything, and 0.4 seconds, ease in and ease out. Okay, so, and then we're going to give this a color of white, and then we're going to do background color as well. Background color is going to be hash 19, 22 and 32. Okay, so that's going to be our background color. We can also do font size here, font size 1.4 rem. Okay, alright, so now let's save this. Okay, there is our input. The width is 75%. Okay, but when I click this, I want the width to be way more than this. So to do that, actually for this width, I'm going to increase this to 50% just to make it a little more. Okay, so now width is equal to 75%. When I click, I want the width to be 100%. So I'm going to say end focus when I focus, and then also when it's active width, I'll do 100% like so. Okay, seems like we have issues. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now let's do the button. So for the button, after the input, we're going to do button, and then position absolute height 100%, border none, background transparent, cursor pointer. Okay, cursor pointer, outline none, and then after the outline we're going to do a background color of hash this one. Okay, and then we're going to do padding. Top and bottom is going to be 0, 1 rem left and right. Okay, and then margin left minus 3 rem. Okay, and then we're going to do border top radius, border top right radius. This one is going to be 25 pixels. Okay, and then border bottom right radius, bottom right radius 25 pixels as well. And then I'm going to target the image which is inside the button. I'm going to give it a height of 20 pixels. Okay, like so. Okay, there is our button. Okay, and there is our input. Alright, so the width is increasing, but when I have a, I'm going to increase this to, let's say, 80%. 80%. Okay. Okay, so now when it's active, it goes to 100, and when it's not active, it's 80%. Okay, let me increase this to something like 80% as well. Okay, let me inspect this. Search from, okay, wrong spelling. It's supposed to be search form. Alright, so now I'm going to decrease this width from 80% to maybe 40%. Okay, there it is. Now it looks far better. Okay, so now, yeah, I think there's nothing much we need to do really for the input. So now let's just work on the main body of the website. Okay, so after the header, we're going to focus on the main. So the main, we're going to do main content. Okay, so main content, we're not going to have nothing much really here. Most of the stuff in the main content is going to be generated by the JavaScript. Okay, so after the main, we're going to do dot. So this one, we're going to view more images. We're just going to give it a div of view, and then button dot btn. Okay, something like that. Or we can do dot view more images. Okay, so inside here we're going to do view more, and then I'm going to apply a bit of spacing using HTML entities. So we're going to do nbsp, and then we're going to apply an arrow that's going to point downwards. So it's another HTML entity. It's going to be end down arrow. Okay, like this, down arrow. Okay, so as you can see, there's a down arrow pointing downwards in the button. Okay, so now let's style the main content. So for the main, we don't need to do that's a lot of styles, so I'll go outside the header, then I'll do dot main content. So for the main content, we're going to have a display. Actually, we'll do that later because we're going to put all of the items in a grid, but we'll do that later. So let's not do the main for now. Now let's do the body. In the body, we're just going to do background color. I think this one is going to be our background color. Oh, not that one. the other one, this one. Okay, so that's our background color. Okay, so yeah, I will take a break now, and then in the next video I'm going to be doing JavaScript. I'll take a break now. Alright, so now let's go and get our API key from Pexels. All you need to do is just to create an account. It's free. After that, go to your user and then go to image and video API. Okay, so let's go to your key. So this key is supposed to be private. You're not supposed to share this key. I'm only sharing for the purpose of this video, but you're not supposed to. So never use this key. Get your own key and don't share it with anyone. Okay, so click view, read the documentation of the API, and then what we're going to do now, go to VS Code and then create a new file. It's going to be app.js. Okay, so in here, so let's cog console log hello world. Yeah, that's the way I spell world is weird, and hello. Okay, so now let's link our JavaScript file with our HTML. We can do script and then source to link and then app.js. So when we go to the browser, we just want to check if our JavaScript is connected properly, and then inspect and then go to console. We have hello world. It's coming from the JavaScript. That means the connection is working fine. So now what we need to do is const, actually let's do a let. We're going to do key and then equals to the string of the key we've copied from Pexels. Okay, so we're going to use the fetch API instead of using an external library like Axios or other libraries for fetching data. Okay, so the fetch API is quite easy to use. So let's get started. To use the fetch API, we just type fetch, and then it takes a parameter which is the link that you want to fetch the data from. So let's go to Pexels and copy. Let's go to the photos. The one that we want is curated photos, and then we're going to copy the URL there. Curated photos. Oops, curated. Okay, we want something like this. Okay, copy this link and then go to the fetch API and then put it inside. Okay, and then per page you can change this value to whatever images you want per page. For example, 15. We want 15 images, and then we're going to do a dot then, and then you're going to take a parameter, the response object. Okay, so the takes a nice callback function, and then here we can do cog the response. Okay, so when we go to the browser, hopefully we should see a response. Okay, a nice response. This is the page, the link that we're fetching the data from. Okay, so let's create a function. So instead of doing this way, it's better to create a function so we can reuse the fetch function wherever we want to use it to. Okay, so because we're going to reuse this fetch in different functions, so it's just better to make it as a separate function. We can just call it inside a function that we want to use it to. Okay, so what we're going to create a function called const curated photos, which is goes to async. So we're using async because getting the data from the server might take a while to get the data, so it's better to use async rather than waiting for the response. A user can do something else rather than just waiting for the response. Okay, so inside the async we can now do the initial fetch of our data. We can start using the fetch API. Okay, so let's start by doing const fetch data. This goes to we can do await fetch. Okay, and then we're fetching the data. So let's put our link in here. So let's do per page 15. Okay, so per page we have 15 per page. I'll show you something that this is not going to work. So I'll do cog and then I'll do fetch data. So I want this data to be in JSON format. So I'll do fetch data.json because I want the data to be returned in JSON format, and then I'm going to call this function, which is curated photos. Okay, and then when I go to the browser, this should return a promise. Okay, so now we have a promise. It says pending. Okay, so it says authorization field is missing. So it's giving us this pending an error because we didn't utilize the key, the API key, so we don't have access to this URL. So what we need to do is we need to use this key so so that the API knows that we have access to the data. So what we can do, we can create a separate function for that. So this one is going to be const API handling, or you can name it whatever you want. Okay, and then this one is going to be async as well. It's going to take a callback, not a callback function really, it's going to take a URL. I'm thinking of a callback function too much. It's going to take a URL parameter. Okay, and then inside here we can do const fetch data. You can name this function whatever you want, and then we're doing it goes to await, and then here that's where we're going to do the fetch. Okay, so what are we going to fetch? We're going to fetch the URL, this URL, whatever we pass inside the API handling is what we're going to fetch. Okay, and then we're going to do a comma. We're going to put an object here so we can do the handling of this key and headers and stuff. Okay, so the method is going to be get, because we're doing a get method, get request. We're getting the data from the server, so it's a get request. For example, if we were to send the data into the database, this method will be different. It will be post. So this one is get. We're getting things from the server. Okay, so we have headers. So for the headers, we're going to accept application /JSON. Okay, accept. We have to make sure your spelling is correct. And then we have authorization, and then we're going to put the key, the API key. Okay, so our API should know we have access to this URL. Okay, so now we can go ahead and delete this. Okay, so what we can do now is we can call this function here, the one that is handling the API and we're doing the key, API key. We can go inside here, down here, we can call that function. Okay, so what we can do const data, and then it goes to await, and then we're going to call API handling. Okay, so it takes in a parameter which is the URL of the images that we want. Okay, so how many do we want per page? You can say 10, 15, whatever. So now the data is saved in a variable called data. Okay, so now we can CLG the data now. CLG. Oops, we're already console logging data. Okay, so now we can CLG the data, but in here we're missing something again. After this, we're going to we forgot to return the data, the fetch data. Return fetch data. Okay, and then we need to convert the data to JSON as well. So we're going to const the data. Actually, we don't need to return the fetch data. We need to return the data in JSON format, the one that comes from the JSON. So const data, we're going to do is goes to await data, fetch data. Okay, so fetch data.json. We want the data to come in JSON format, and then we're returning the data. And then down here, we're going to console log the data. We have access to this data. in JSON format. Okay, so now let's console log the data. Authorization field missing. We're still getting an error. Let's see why. Authorization field. Let me double check if the spelling is correct. It is correct. Key. Oh, it's headers, not header. So make sure it's headers. Don't say header. Okay. So now we're getting the images that we want. We're getting photos. Okay, we're getting an array of objects which contains the photos. We have 10. You can increase this number to whatever amount that you want. Okay, so if I go to the URL, it says 10. I can increase this to whatever value, and then as you can see, we have more images per page, 15, and we have an array containing 15 items. Okay, so as you can see, we can start now doing the HTML markup. We can start inserting the HTML inside our website. Okay, we can do that after the API handling here. I think it's better. So insert HTML. Yeah, let's just do insert HTML. So inside the insert HTML, we're going to create a function for inserting the HTML. Const insert HTML. So in here, in this function, it's going to take a parameter of data. You can name this parameter whatever you want, but I think data would be good. And then I'm going to do data dot for each. Actually, the data is coming here. If I check the API, so this is the data, and then dot photos, which is this array. Okay, so if I say data, this whole thing, and then dot photos, and then I'm accessing this array. Okay, so I'm going to say data dot photos. Okay, data dot photos dot for each. I want to for each, and then it's going to take a callback function as usual. Okay, so I'm going to get a photo. I think we might need the index. I'm just going to say the index, and then the next parameter will be to get the whole thing, but we don't need it for now. We just need the photo and the index. Okay, so a callback function. What is going to be in here? In here, we're going to create a new HTML element. So it's going to be const to create a new element. So this one is going to be gallery or whatever, gallery container or image container. It goes to document. Document to create element. So what are we going to create? We're going to create a div, and then we want to add that div inside the main content. Okay, actually we need to add a class to this div as well. So we can say gallery dot class list oh my days, class list dot add. What's going on? Dot add, and then we're going to add a class of gallery, something like that. Okay, now we have a class, and then down here we're going to say gallery dot inner HTML, which goes to another div. So this div is going to be div with a class of the class is going to be called image holder. Okay, so this is the div. It's like a parent for the image, so it's going to contain the image. Okay, and then inside this div we're going to have an image. Okay, and then we're going to do img, and then we're going to do s as source for source, src, which is goes to for the source. So the source is going to come from here. So I want the source of the image to be the, where is it? Yeah, here. It's going to come from the source. So we're going to get the medium size Okay, it's going to come from here. We're going to get the medium, so we're going to do source, and then we're going to do this selector here, because we're going to do a bit of JavaScript, and then we're going to do photo dot src for source, and then dot medium or large, whatever size that you want. We'll do medium. It's coming from photo, which is this whole thing, photo dot source dot size. Okay, and then so this image is going to be medium. We need to close the tag. Okay, so let's close the tag, and then we close the tag, img, and then oops, we're going to close the tag as well for the div. Okay, so now we have a gallery, but we need to add this gallery to the main content. We haven't done that yet, have we? So if I'll go down here, I'll say main content, did I name it main content? I forgot what I've named it. Oh, we didn't actually select the main content. Const main content equals to document dot query selector, and then we're going to say dot main content Okay, make sure your spelling is correct by selecting the main content. Okay, so now that we have the main content, this is the main content, by the way, this one. Now we have the main content. Now we're going to say main content dot we're going to append the child. We're going to add a child element inside this main content, which is going to be the gallery. Okay, so if I say gallery, if I reload the page, we should be able to have some pictures there, or at least a picture. Let me inspect body main content. Seems like it's not there yet. Oh, because this function, we're not using this function yet. We're supposed to use this function for us to be able to see the content, because we're not using it, so we won't be able to really like see anything. So inside the created photos, that's where we want to utilize the function. Okay, so in here we're going to utilize this function, because we're getting this data, right? So this data is going to serve as our parameter. Okay, so now I'll call this function, which is insert HTML, and then the data is going to serve as our parameter. So this data, which is coming from the API. Okay, so now let's save. We should have something now. There we have some images. Okay, but I think these images are a bit slow. No, not slow, I mean small. I'm going to reduce the size from medium to large. Okay, so now we have a large size image. There it is. We have a large size image, but I haven't finished adding the markup. I'm going to add a bit more markup after this this div. Actually, this div is a parent to the first image. I'm going to add more. I'm going to add more after this image. So make sure you indent your code. So in here I'm going to create another div. This one is going to be a profile div. Div class is equals to profile, and then make sure you close this. The div. Okay, this is so slow because there's no auto completion in here. So profile, in the profile I'm going to add two things: an anchor tag, a tag, and then href, which is going to be equal to an href which is going to be equal to the photo photo dot photographer URL, photographer URL, which is coming from here. So if I go to console, I think, oh, we're no longer console logging anymore. That's why I'm not seeing the data object, but it's coming from that data object, photographer URL. Okay, and then we're going to close this, so it's an anchor tag, and then the title for this one is going to be the photographer, photographer, just photographer, like this. Okay, and then we close the anchor tag like so, and then we're going to copy this one more time. So for this anchor tag, we're going to change the href. Okay, so for this one, we are going to change this from photo.url to photo.src source.large. Okay, so inside this URL, I'm going to put an image. Okay, you'll see why I'm putting an image in here. img, and then we're going to do source src, which is close to we're targeting the image folder. So we're going to do img download. So that's the svg that we want to target, or svg. Okay, download.svg. We're going to target that, and then we close this tag, and then we close the img as well, img, and then let's save. Hopefully everything is going to work without errors. Okay, now we have the name of the photographer and the download image. So when I click the download, it's going to lead me to download this image. So now if I right click, I'm going to save this image as, because this download, it's going to link to where the image is. Okay, so remember what we did here, the href, it's going to the source of the image, like the link. So it's separating the link. Okay, so it's going to the link, and then now you can download the image. Alright, that's why we put the href to the source of that image. Okay, so now let's do a bit of styling before we do anything, before we go any far. So for styling, I'll go to the styles.css. Actually, before I start doing any style, I'm going to take a break for now, and then I'll be back with more. Okay, so now let's do the styling. So in here, I'm going to click watch Sass. Okay, so now we can begin the styling journey. So in the main content, actually, hold on, what's in the main content? So let me review this again. Let me inspect this, inspect. So inside the main content, we have a gallery, we have a bunch of gallery classes. So we want to display this as a grid. Okay, we want to be a nice grid. To do that, let's go to the style.css. We're going to do display, and then we're going to do grid, and then grid template columns. We're going to say repeat, and then autofill, and then min-max. We're going to have a minimum width of 350 pixels. Okay, so min-max 350 pixels, and then 1fr. Okay, so now we have each grid item is going to have a minimum of 350 pixels. So that means the container of the image is going to have a minimum of 350 pixels, the width. And then we're going to give a grid row gap, which is going to be somewhere between 5 to 6 rem. Let's do 5 rem for now, 5 rem, and then we do grid column gap 1.5 rem. You can give this any value that you see fit. Okay, or 1.2 RAM, whatever. And then we're going to do a padding. So padding top and bottom is going to be 0, and then left and right is going to be 6 RAM, because we want a spacing between left and right. Okay, so now when I save this, we should have a grid. Okay, there it is. We have a nice grid. Okay, so but we're not really centered nicely because the images are overlapping. We are not, these images are not really nice to look at the moment because they're large. We need to style them. So now I'm going to select the dot gallery. Do you remember we created a class called gallery in our JavaScript? So that's the class I'm targeting in here. So I'm going to give it a background color of hash, this gray color here, and then height of 100%, and then I'm going to target the dot image holder. I'm pretty sure I created this class somewhere in the JavaScript. There it is, image holder, and then this one I'm going to give it a height of 100% again. Okay, and also I'm going to target the img width 100%, and then object fit. I don't want everything to scale, so I'll say cover. I don't want I'll just say cover, or not contain, cover. I don't want everything to stretch, not scale, stretch. And then height, just the same thing. Now the images should be in the containers. Okay, something's not right. What is this? I don't know what this is. Hold on. Image holder. Oh, never mind. I'm targeting the wrong image. It's outside the image holder. Put it here and then you save. Okay, refresh the page. Still 1 second. I'm not sure what's going on with these styles. Let me inspect. Image holder, img. I don't know what this is. Oh, it's the download SVG. Why is it looking weird? We need to start this download SVG actually. So let's see what it is. So it's inside profile. So profile, let's select profile. We can still style it in here actually. Dot profile, and then in here we're going to give it a background color. So the background color is going to be hash, this one as well, and then maybe we can give it a margin top, let's say minus, like this, 0.5 RAM, and then we're going to do a padding 1.5, and then 0.5, and then we're going to do a display flex for that, display flex, and then justify content. We want to space between the icon and the name, space between. Okay, so we're spacing between the icon and the name. Okay, so now we're going to target the anchor tag inside the profile, and then we're going to do position relative, and then we're going to do font size 1.3 RAM. Okay, and then I'm going to target the first child inside the. I'm going to target the first the first anchor tag, which is the name. So I'm going to say nth child, or actually we can do first child, whatever, first child, and then we can do color to white. Okay, so now we've targeted that. Okay, there it is. So now we have our images. Nice. Okay, so we can increase the grid gap of the row. Okay, grid gap column, grid row gap. Let's increase this to 8 rem. That's too much. It's 8 rem because we have this space for the name and the download icon. That's why I'm giving that large amount of grid gap. Okay, so now, yeah, I think this looks okay. So now let's work on this image. I think it's better if I reduce some width of this image. If I say, yeah, maybe this width, something like that, maybe. And then the height, maybe I'll do something like this. Yeah, doesn't seem to be looking good, but you can choose to reduce the height if you want to. Image holder, padding 2 rem. Doesn't work out nicely if you give a padding to that. Okay, so I think it's better if we leave it without padding, and it will look nice anyway, just looking like this without a padding. Okay, alright, so now this grid is automatically responsive because we're using a min-max, so the minimum width is 230 or 250 pixels, whatever we've used. Okay, so it's automatically responsive. Okay, so now that we have the images, let's work on other features, like maybe loading more images or something else. We'll see. Okay, so now that we have our gallery, I'm thinking to add a bit of a box shadow around each image. So what I'll do now, I think the parent container for this is the image. Well, let me inspect this. Profile, image holder is the gallery. Okay, gallery, I'll do box shadow. So 10 pixels on the x-axis, actually 5 pixels on the x-axis. On the y-axis, 5 pixels, 15 pixels blur, and then RGBA. So the white is going to be 255, 255, 255, 255. And then the alpha is going to be 1, so it's maximum. The intensity means it's very high. Okay, so the intensity is very high. It's to be 0.1, and the but I want it on the sides to be more on the x-axis, but it looks weird, you know what I mean? Let's change this to 0, 0. Still looks weird. Okay, I'll leave it like this for now. We can always fix it later. Alright, so now let's work on something else. So now we're only getting those 15 images. We can increase how many images we want per page, but we're only limited to those 15. So we want to even get more images. So how do we do that? How do we load in more images? So to do that, I'm going to select, firstly let's start with the search. Actually, we want to be able to search whatever images that we want to search. So I think that will be a good functionality to start with. So let's start with const. Actually, I'll duplicate this. I'll say search input, search input. I will need to select the class search of search input, search input, and then we're going to do a search form as well, search form, because we want to select the form and the input and the submit button, and then btn submit, and then if I remember correctly, I've named the btn submit again, submit. Okay, because we want to submit some data using this, that's why I'm selecting these items here. Okay, so to search for the data, I'm going to create a new function. So the function, we're just going to call this I don't know, const search images. We're going to do the same thing with async, same thing as we did before. So in here we're going to still call the fetch, the data fetch function. What did I name that function? This one, API handling. So it's going to take a URL, the parameter, as a parameter. So the URL, I'm struggling to say this, that we're going to use for this one, so it's going to be different from the one that we used before. Okay, so for this one we're going to use a different URL. So let's go to the pixels. We need to find search for photos. Okay, so there it is. I'll copy this URL, and then I'll say down here const I think I'll define this variable outside here as a global const. So this variable is going to be like in the global, so I'll name this, actually it's going to change, so it's let, because constant is a constant. So fetch search images or something, search images link, something like that. And then I'll go down here, I'll say search images link, and then this link I'm going to set it to the, so make sure you're using this not the normal, I don't know what is this one is called actually. I think you know what it's called, but I don't know what it's called. So in here we're going to, the query, we need to pass our own value for the query. Okay, so when we search, we're going to search for whatever value that we pass in our input. So this query, I'm going to remove this query, and then I'm going to replace with our own query. Okay, so we're going to replace with our own query. That's why we need to create another variable that's going to get the input data, and then we replace the input data and put it in the query here. So the query is going to get the data from the input and then put it here. Okay, so that's why we need to give it a parameter, which is search query. So the search query is going to be here, so search query. Okay, so search query, and per page, how many do we want? Let's say 10 or 15, whatever number you want. So down here I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to call the API headers, the API handling. So this is the API handling, which is the contains our headers, okay, with our get method. So in here I'm going to say const data, the same thing, is goes to this API handling, and then in here I'm going to put the search images link. Okay, so now this link is going here, and then now we have the data. So if we have the data, we're going to generate the data again. So what do we do? What do we call here? So we're going to insert HTML and then the data. Okay, so we're going to recreate the data still. Okay, so down here I'm going to call the function search what is it called? Search images. I'm forgetting the name of the function. Search images. Okay, and then I'll call the function down here. So hopefully when we search, we should be able to do that. But we didn't do any event listeners for this input yet. So we need to slow down. So now let's go and do an event listener. Okay, so to do an event listener, it's very easy. You don't need to do anything much. So let's do event listeners up here above. Yeah, we can do it below the API handling or so, wherever you want. Listen for events. Okay, we're going to listen for a click. Oh, actually not a click necessarily, but for a submit. When we click, actually it's a click when we submit the form. So we're going to say search form dot add event listener. So what are we going to listen for? Submit, and then it takes in a callback function, or you can create a separate function, and then this function is going to take in an event, parameter event. So by default, when we click this form, I did something wrong here. What did I do? Oh, I didn't put a comma. You need to separate this with a comma. Okay, so by default, right, when I go to this form, if I click submit, it's going to refresh the page by default. See, it's refreshing the page. Okay, so even when I'm refreshing the page, it's still doing the requests. I think we have like 2,000 requests per hour, the limit. I'm not sure what the limit is. It's still doing those requests, so don't keep refreshing the page. Okay, so I'm going to say e.prevent default, so it doesn't refresh the page on by default. So now when I click, it's not even refreshing the page anymore. Okay, alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create more global variables. So this one is going to be let search, what can I name this? Current search, something like that. And then the value, let the value that we've searched, searched value or search value. Okay, so what are we going to do here? So we're going to say, what is it? Current search, we're going to say it's equals to the search value. Okay, search value. Okay, like so. So and then we're doing that, and then we're calling the search photos, the search images in here, down here, and then the query is going to be our search value. That's going to be our query, whatever search value that we've searched. We're also going to add another event listener above here. So this one is going to be search input. So the input, we're getting the actual data from the input. So search input. So in this search input, we're going to add an event listener. Add event listener. So for this one, we're targeting the input. So for this input, we're going to take an event again. Okay, so in event, we want to target whatever data our user, a user is entering in the search form. So we're going to say search value is equals to e.target of value, the value a user is entering in the search form. Okay, now I save. Hopefully I should be able to get the input from here. If I say, let's say egg, we should be able to search, but it's not working. We need to slow down. Let's see why it's not working. Okay, so let's see our console. It seems to be good. Okay, we have an error in our console for each insert item, search images, blah blah blah. Okay. Okay. What's going on? I'm looking for the error. Sorry guys for that. I'm looking for the error. Cannot read for each data. So it means this data doesn't exist, but why? Why though? Why though? Hold on a second. Let me put these events at the top. You know, JavaScript can be weird sometimes. Okay, now let's see. We have one error now. Okay, we have an error when we click the import. The search cannot read tab for each. Okay, I'm going to take a break for now, and then when I find the error I will come back. Okay, I think I found an error. I think I've missed an await here. Const data await. So make sure when you use an async, you should always use await. I didn't notice that. So now let's save. Let's see if the code works. I didn't check this out, so I'm assuming that's the error. That's why it wasn't working, because whenever you don't use await, when you use async and you don't use await, it doesn't end well. Okay, so now when I click the import, we don't get an error anymore, so everything is fine now. The console is not complaining. So now let's search for, let's say, egg. Okay, I think we're returning the data, but what is the data? That's the question. Let's see why we're not getting our data. Okay, if I say, let's say, I don't know, mountain or something. Mountain. Okay, we're submitting, but the question is, where's our data? Where is it? So the data is coming, but it's coming down here. You see, it's coming down here. Okay, so some of the images are a bit smaller than others, so but the data is coming, it's being added down. Okay, it's being added all the way down. So if I search for an egg earlier, it's being added down below. So if I search for something else, maybe do yoga, the data is coming, but it's being added down. So we need a way to get rid of the existing data, and then also we need to refresh. We need to, empty the input. As long after clicking enter, we need to get rid of this yoga. We need to set the string to an empty string. Okay, so it's easy to do that. So let's go back up here, just below the events. I'll do events. Just beneath it, I'll just do const clear input. It's a function to clear the input, so it's an easy thing to do. It's just, let's do an arrow function, or we can just do almost like that. It's an arrow function, so in here we're going to say main content dot inner HTML. So when we click search, we want to call this clear function. We're going to remove the existing content. Okay, we're going to remove the existing content. We're going to set the inner content to an empty string, and then the search input value, the search input, the search value, or what did I name it? Search input dot value, and then we're going to put into an empty string again. So we're going to call this function when we search. Okay, so can you take a guess where we are going to call this function. Okay, so this function is going to be called down in the search, because when we search we need to clear the input and then clear the existing data. So let's go back to the search images, and down here I'll just say clear input and existing data. Okay, so down here I'll just call clear. So that's the function. Okay, so now let me refresh this page. So we start with normal images. Okay, and then when I say egg, okay, now there's a bit of a delay with the data, but it's working. It's deleting the existing data. If I type yoga, okay, it's doing its job. Okay, so the functionality works. It works fine. We can search, we can, like, do the basic stuff really. Now what we need to do now is implementing the load more pictures here. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to see what it is, inspect this, main content, view. So the class is view. Let's style that. I'll go to styles. You know what, I can just do this wherever I want. I can do it here. So the view, so what are we going to style the view? So the view, we're going to give it a padding. Top and bottom is going to be 10 RAM, and then left and right is going to be 0. Okay, so we're going to give it a high padding, top and bottom, and then we're going to do display. We want to center this button, flex, and then justify content. We're going to do center, because we want to center it. Okay, so in there we have a button. We're going to target that button. Okay, so background color, some process. I hate redoing these styles, but hey, we have to do it. Okay, padding 1 RAM, top and bottom, and then left and right 2 RAM. And then we're going to do outline, none, border to none. Okay, we're going to do cursor, pointer. Let's do the font size 1.2 RAM. Works fine for me. Font family, inherit, and then we're going to do a bit of a transition as well. Okay, transition, we can use a cubic bezier or cubic bezier, I don't know how to pronounce it. 0.4 seconds, and then ease in and ease out. Okay, so now we have a nice transition. We can give this a color of white as well. Okay, so we should have a nice button down here somewhere. Okay, there it is. We have our button. So we need to make a hover animation for this one. Okay, so for the hover, we're going to do end hover pseudo element, the pseudo selector. We're going to do background color to white, and then color to black, and then we're going to do a box shadow 5 pixels on the x-axis. I'll do 4 pixels actually. 4 pixels on the y, 10 pixels blur, RGBA, this one. Okay, 0 0. Now when I should have a nice animation and a nice box shadow. Okay, there it is. So now let's implement the more feature. So this one is only a matter of adding the pages. We need to implement the more, view more. So the view more, we're going to do the same thing. We can say here view more pictures. Okay, so the view more pictures, we're going to do the same thing. Const view more is equals to an arrow function. Okay, so in here, what are we going to do? So we're going to create another global variable. So this one is going to be let page count is equals to 1 by default. So we're going to start on page 1. So every time we click the more button, it's going to increment the page count, so which is 1 at the starting point. Async. Okay, so every time that I'm going to click the view button, it's going to increment the page count by 1. So if I do ++, it means increment, add by 1 every time I click the view count. So it's going to keep increasing the image, the page count. Okay, so I'm going to say if current search is true. So if current search is to true is equals to true, what are we going to do? Okay, so if current search is equals to true, we're going to get the fetch. We're going to say API handling. We're going to call that, and then we're going to take this query, search query here. We're going to take that and put in here. Okay, so we're going to replace the page number. So the page number, we're going to replace it with the variable. Okay, so in here we're going to say page count. Okay, per page count, whatever page. Actually, no, not per page. Per page is equals to 10. We need after the page, per page is equals to 10, and we're going to say end page, so page number. So those images will come in page numbers. Okay, so end page, so the page number is equals to the variable, which is page count. Okay, page count. So the query, we're going to change the query from search query to current whatever I've searched. Okay, so to current search, that's the query. Okay, else, okay, I'm going to say else. We're going to copy this whole thing. Actually, hold on. Yeah, API handling, URL. Actually, I don't need API handling for this one. This one is data. What did I call it? Hold on, what? API const await. Hold on, I forgot what I've named it. Oh, search images link. That's what I want to call, not API, because I had forgotten the name. So search images link is equals to that, to this string. Okay, I had forgotten the name. And then else, so this is supposed to be if it's true, and then else I'm going to say per page I don't need the search query actually for this one. I just need the curated photos. Where is it? So I only need this one, and then the page number, the page count. Okay, so else I'm setting it to the to this link, search images link, and then I'll set it to this one. Okay, so but per page I'm going to set the page number, which is the page count. Okay, so the page count, we do this, and then we do page count. Okay, so now we have a page count. So the page count is incrementing by 1 every time that we click the view more button. Okay, and what's left to do now is just to generate the data, just to code the data to insert the HTML. So we're going to say const data. We did this before, and then await. Don't forget await. And then we're going to do API handling, and then we're going to put the search images link. Okay, and then below that we're going to call the generate data function, or the insert HTML function, and then we're going to put the data in here. Okay, so now everything should work as expected. So when I refresh, we have default values. When I view more, there's nothing, because let me inspect, because I haven't searched anything yet. Hopefully, if I say, actually no, I haven't added an event listener event listener for the button. So what is it called? View more. Okay, you know, I always make silly mistakes. btn search, no, view more, you know, these silly mistakes, everyone makes them, so don't judge me, please. Okay, so view more, I'll edit in the events here. Events, I'll just say view more dot add event listener. What did I name it? btn view more, btn view more dot add event listener, and then in here we're listening for a click, and then we're going to call a function which is called view more. Okay, so we're listening for the click, and then when we click, we're calling a function called view more. Okay, now we have an error already. Cannot access view more before initialization. Okay, so JavaScript runs the codes line by line. Okay, so how are we going to access view more? Where is it? Down here, const. So that's why there is a hosting hoisting in JavaScript. So let's do this. We can do this async view more. Actually, it's a function view more. So we can hoist this function. So hoisting means taking the function from like down here and put all the way up. So now we don't have an error anymore. Okay, so now I can click the view more, and it's revealing more images. Okay, so now if I search for like egg, okay, if I search for an egg, I can click and view more eggs. Okay, I can view even more eggs. Okay, so unchecked runtime last error. Don't mind this error. It's not our fault. It's not our error. It's not our fault. I don't know why it's producing the error, but it's not because our JavaScript is not working or something. I think it's coming from the API. I don't know. Okay, so now we can view more images, and we can also search for, let's say, yoga or football, whatever. We can always view more images. Okay, we can always view more. We can download. Okay, we can save as now. Okay, so yeah, I think if you want to make the whole thing responsive, it's already responsive anyway. You can only just work on the input anyways. Just work on the input to make it responsive. You can use media queries. So at a certain, let's say this width, I want to get rid of the padding. So what I'll do, since we're using Sass, I can just go in the main content. Where did we apply that big padding? It's inside grid gap. I'm pretty sure I did 10 rem somewhere. Okay, view, no, not the view. I'm looking for something else. Gallery, there should be a padding somewhere. Left and right 6 rem. Yeah, here I can say it media screen and I'll do max width. Let's check the width that we want to get rid of the padding. I'll do maybe 559 pixels. 559 pixels. So here I want to get rid of the some of the padding here. I'll copy this and then I'll say maybe 2 rem. And then yeah, we have now less padding. It's like mobile responsive. If I go to mobile screens, I can, so it's not responsive for like that's a Galaxy Fold iPhone 10. So for iPhone 10 you can work with these values, pixels, and change so many things, get rid of the paddings and stuff. So let me do that. So I'll do maybe 376 pixels or something. Maybe 0.5 rem, just a tiny bit. Okay, there it is. Now it's like nicely laid out. We can also do the font size, change this a little bit. What is it called? I think it's called a logo. I'll copy this media and then I'll go to logo. I'll go down here, get this, copy, put this, and then reduce this to 1.5 or 1.8 rem, something smaller. Okay, now it's smaller. Now let's do the input. You can do this by yourself, really. You don't need me to do this. So the input, input width, oops, what I meant to copy was the media. So if I go to the input here, I'll increase the width to 80%. Actually not in here, but down here, 80%. So now the width is 80%. Font size, I'll copy this, input, I'll also paste it down here. Font size here, I'll do 1 or less. Okay, so yeah, it looks neat now. You can use this in mobile version. Anyways, that's it for this video. I'll see you on the next one.